Hello my friends, and welcome back to the Review Den. I hope you enjoyed the 5th generation Wipeout reviews I posted, and if you're wondering if I'm gonna do more, absolutely. They're great games with some great spin-offs, but for the sake of variety this year, I'll be breaking up game series into blocks or generations. Do a couple here and some more later. Last season I covered an entire series all in one go, and I was worried that got kinda stale. So, for the next few, we're going downtown to Fighter Town to look at some Top Gun games thanks to Top Gun Maverick actually being a pretty kick-butt movie. Suit up, oil up, and watch out, these guys are animals, Mav! It's time to see the white-knuckled, adrenaline-soaked origins of Top Gun video games. Well look, they got better after this one. As I mentioned in my Afterburner 2 review, and yes, we'll do the rest of those too, Top Gun was a box office hit and cultural milestone that launched the imaginations and in some cases, real-life careers of its viewers. So it would have been foolish not to follow up with some sort of video game tie-in. But while Afterburner and the NES Top Gun games wisely stuck to high-speed pick-up-and-play action, the rest of its digital outings didn't always figure out how to balance the intricacies of jet flight with the action of the movie, a trend that began right here. Now, to be fair, there is fun to be had. This is the kind of game to play with your best friend or best mate back in the dorm after classes or on a lazy weekend. Alright, loser buys pizza, Fox, best of 3. But the Top Gun name has certain expectations attached to it, which I think Ocean missed. Okay, in order to get the bona fides right, let's make sure this is in fact the first Top Gun branded video game. There are plenty of subtitled follow-ups, but as far as games simply called Top Gun, there's Top Gun, Top Gun, Top Gun, Top Gun, Top Gun, Top Gun, and while there was a 1983 Atari 2600 game called Top Gun, it turns out that was just the German region title for Air Raiders. Well, that and it was 3 years before the movie, so I think that's safe to scratch off the list. Meaning, yes, this 1986 OceanSoft game is the first Top Gun video game. It released to no less than 6 popular computer platforms of the time, but the gameplay was always the same. 2 Tomcats in a 1v1 dogfight, 3 kills advances a round, and the player is tasked with advancing as many rounds as possible before running out of lives. That's it. No story, nothing else. Simple as. After passing the loading screens and launching from the carrier, the player, on the left, is dumped into a head-on confrontation with another F-14, either piloted by the computer or a second player. The rules are simple, just shoot down your opponent, either by gunning down their health, or a successful missile shot. Top Gun uses a primitive 3D flight engine similar to other games of the time, so it isn't smooth or deep, but it is technically 3D. You can go vertical, sort of. You need to pull the stick to turn, collisions are a very real danger, and you'll need to keep your speed up to avoid sinking the nose. For offense, you can use guns at any time, but they're a bit weak and overheat. Missiles require a few seconds to lock, but are a one-hit KO, as long as they aren't distracted by flares. And flares are quite effective, but only if you time them right. Too soon and the missile ignores, too late and you're already dead. The CPU sticks to guns only for the first 3 or 4 rounds to keep things easy, but pretty soon it will use missiles and you'll have to work to clear your tail. And honestly, at this point, the game can give you some good battles. Both sides will usually start with a missile, and if everyone survives, you'll then move into a closer range tussle trying for a gun kill, or another missile shot if you can get a lock. It's very simplistic, but when it comes together, it's a decent primer to basic flight maneuvers, keeping your opponent in your weapons envelope long enough for a kill. Hey, I'm trying to be positive here. There's even some added character in each of the ports. In the Commodore 64 version, the AI would always spoof your missiles, but guns did damage more quickly, so every fight would wind up a gunfight with fast time to kills. Whereas on the Spectrum, or Specky, the guns were a lot less effective, but you could beat flares by being really close. So each mission would start by us lobbing a missile at each other, both dumping flares, then winding up in a point-blank missile fight where the first to lock on would get the kill. Now for graphics, just know we are talking 8-bit computers here, be fair, but yeah, even by those standards, this is a pretty barren looking game. It is presented in a permanent split screen, kind of like Microprose's Make Alley Ace, which is cool. You can always see both sides of the action, but there really needs to be something more than just a horizon line here. Comparable games like Battlezone and Strike Eagle both added some pizzazz to the backgrounds, which is really needed here. Just something like Fake Mountains or a Space Harrier checkerboard would have helped. But on the plus side, the planes and missiles are 3D, not sprites, and they're mostly perspective correct. For information, you have a damage meter, throttle, gun temperature, missile lock indicator, and a top-down style radar with arrows to show if your opponent is above or below. Your altitude and airspeed are shown in the game window, and a weapon and attitude indicator finish things up. Different ports rearrange things, but for the most part, these are all present in all versions. Audio is mostly bleeps and bloops. You get sounds for guns, missile locks, and explosions, but that's mostly it. The only standout is the music. The Amstrad gets the Top Gun anthem and Danger Zone, Spectrum gets the anthem, and Commodore gets a wailing rock ballad that might be a Danger Zone remix, but I'm not sure. PC and Atari ST get the Star Spangled Banner, which I guess means someone didn't get the licensing rights, and the Thomson MO, well, doesn't get much of anything, sadly. But hey, speaking of ports, how do they stack up? Or judging by emulation, how do they stack up? Well, the Amstrad CPC launched first and seems to be the best overall. It maintains a good frame rate, has the most music, and even features the actors' likenesses on the title card. There's no missing content, and it has nice colors when you actually get to see them. The Spectrum is second, it plays mostly smooth, graphics are clear and colorful, and you get the anthem playing between missions. The Commodore is where we see some drop-off. I won't knock it for more muted colors, that's just the Commodore's look. No, the issue here is the frame rate. The game runs kinda choppy here, and the movement is choppy as well. It doesn't show your speed, which is annoying, but at least you get a rockin' ballad between missions. The IBM and PC clones market was a little behind the times here, so you're limited to 4-color CGA and PC speaker sounds. Ugh. This port also has some gameplay oddities. If you want to play single player, you have to play on the right screen, not inconvenient, just odd, and while you have access to missiles, the computer never seems to use them, kind of breaking the difficulty. Defeated planes go spinning out of control, which looks cool, but overall, it's a janky port. The Thomson MO is, from my exhaustive Google research, essentially a French and Italian licensed take on the 8-bit systems used to push computer literacy in classrooms, so sort of like the BBC Micro. Either way, it tends to go overlooked, but I was able to get it running, so yay Review Den. Unfortunately, this is also a lackluster port. There is no sound except for bullet hits and explosions, you don't have full control, so it's banked turn, there are no missiles for either player, it's all guns only, but the worst or maybe funniest part is how the AI's go-to move in this version is mostly just to ram you. Seriously, the computer plane has no self-preservation, and if you don't spend all your time avoiding them, they'll just crash you both. Every single time. It also runs really slow, which makes each round kind of a slog. And finally, we have the Atari ST port, which not only has a poor frame rate like the Thomson, it's just disappointing. The ST was a shiny new 16-bit computer in a world of 8-bit systems, and here it's just wasted. The title screen is nicely digitized and the readouts are all labeled so you don't have to memorize them, but it adds nothing to the background. No details, no color. Sound is also a complete afterthought, and this is coming from a system that helped produce real-life chart toppers. Overall, if you're watching this and thinking that it all looks pretty mediocre, well, it is, but let me try to be fair. This dropped in the same year as the movie, so Ocean was probably up against time. The British ports, the Amstrad and Spectrum, actually do run well, so the developers may have been able to put their skills to work better on native systems which they knew, while overseas ports suffered without time for polish. And as far as style, PC flight sims were just now getting serious and trendy, so the developers may have run to what they thought would be popular. In fact, the funny thing about Ocean's Top Gun is it's actually closer to, I guess you could say, real-life combat flight school than the movie was. But that's really the problem. The movie was all about Hollywood action, and people buying a Top Gun video game expected that, not endless one-on-one training fights. Had this been called like Tomcat Dogfight Simulator and added some much-needed graphics details, I think it would have been better received. It's just not quite a Top Gun game. It's kind of fun, just not Top Gun. The good news is the next game would fare much better on that front, and it even has graphics. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed a little look back at a lesser-known title from this franchise, and if you'd like to help a small channel grow, would you be my next subscriber? I'll be back with another review, and no matter what, be sure to keep going, because you are worth it.